So, President Tinubu has signed the Electoral Act 2026 Amendment Bill into law, establishing the legal framework for the 2027 general elections. The signing at the presidential villa comes just days after INEC unveiled the official election timetable and after weeks of intense legislative debate and public pressure on key reforms. One of the most contentious issues has been the electronic transmission of results. Civil society, opposition parties, and pro-democracy advocates have pushed for mandatory real-time transmission from polling units directly to INEC's central database. The new law introduces safeguards against technical failures, but critics argue it may leave loopholes for manipulation.
What is crucial is the fact that you manage the process to the extent there will be no confusion, no disenfranchisement of Nigerians, and that we are all going to see democracy flourish. It is time that we have confidence in our system. No matter how good a system is, it's managed by the people, promoted by the people, and the result is finalized by the people. In fact, for final results, you are not going to be talking to the computer, you are going to be talking to human beings who will announce the final results. And when you look at the crux of various arguments, maybe Nigerians should question our broadband capability. How technically are we today? How technically will we be tomorrow?
President Tinubu, well, to debate the critical questions, we've brought together two opposing voices. Honorable Adebayo Balogun of the APC and chairman of the House Committee on Electoral Matters, who supported the optional clause allowing fallback to physical forms. And Honorable Victor Afam Ogene of the Labour Party, who insists real-time transmission is essential for transparency and public confidence. Tonight they go head-to-head, which approach truly strengthens Nigeria's elections and which leaves room for doubts. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Let me start with you, Honourable Balogun. First of all, what's your reaction to the news that after weeks of intense legislative debate, public pressure, protest, President Tinubu has signed the Electoral Act 2026 Amendment Bill into law, effectively establishing the legal framework for the 2027 general elections?
Well, thank you for having me. It's very significant that it signs before 28th of February, because that's the date INEC has appointed to be stated for the 2027 general election. So if we want this 2026 Electoral Act to function without any flaw, I think it's very, very significant that it signs before 28th, and which he has done. And that's the reason why, yes, I can say we are very happy that he did it really on time.
Right. And Honourable Ogene, what's your reaction to that?
Well, thank you, Charles, and good evening, Nigerians. I will start by saying congratulations to the President and APC for forcing a Fait Accompli on the Nigerian people. I say this with all due sense of responsibility. We knew that the 2027 elections were coming, and we waited until this last minute so that there will not be any agitation from the civil society groups, the media.
Well, there was agitation.
No, having been signed, that closes the door to any further agitation.
Leading up to this, there was agitation.
In the last few weeks and days. But now we have been forced to accept the Fait Accompli. But I think that more importantly, on this solemn day that Nigerians on both sides of the religious divide, Christians and Muslims, began their fast. That it's a sad day for democracy, and we will remember it as such.
Okay, well, that establishes the premise and the points of view that both of you are holding fast to. Honorable Balogun, whatever happened to the real-time clause that was originally passed by the House, I believe, in December?
Well, first of all, let's make it clear that both houses presented the same bill on the floor of the houses, and it both read real time, because it was a joint committee that worked on it. And law is never cast in stone. And if you reason why we have amendments maybe almost every 4 years now is because of new information, and because things are changing. We did our own consideration in December. The Senate did theirs in February. A lot of things happened between those few months.
Like what?
Yes, information that some people are trying to make real time now look like you are going to be viewing your results on the screen, and if they don't do it, then there will be crisis. Then, like responsible legislators, they had to do something. Then it's not about Senate versus reps. It's about doing the right thing. And when we saw what they did, when you go, we must go for harmonization when you have differences. And when we met together, and they gave us reasons, and we saw it. We saw reasons, and that's why when you are going for harmonization, you must have equal numbers, so that in case both of you want to stand on your ground, then there will be stalemate.
Right.
You must be able to convince the other side. And by the time we went into discussions, we saw reasons. We saw the way people are protesting. They were not protesting in the interest of Nigeria. They are protesting for personal reasons. Some people know they knew.
Are you talking about the people in the National Assembly or people outside?
Yes, it's different. They might be outside, and they might be, some are inside, some are outside.
What is the personal interest for civil society groups that campaign for better democracy, stronger, free and fair elections?
Look, I know. We know ourselves. Not every civil society can talk. Not all of them. Some of them are still looking for image. They want to create image for themselves.
Well, that's
they're
fair.
looking for funding.
That is
so look,
definitely
let's
not
be
fair.
very objective. If you cannot come as civil society and ask questions and get answers and behave logically, then I won't consider. I know there are civil societies.
You
see, in any
with
business,
all those civil society groups, including with INEC, before that decision was taken.
I said we all did the same thing. We never saw any harm in the real time, and that's why I said laws are not cast in stone.
Okay.
So if you feel that something is wrong today, for example, we have to change the 300 days, the 360 days for notice to 300 days, because we felt there have been some agitation about election day falling on during the month of Ramadan and the Lent. So as reasonable legislators, we decided to give room for INEC in case INEC decides to make
you've made the point. Honorable Ogene, let me bring you in, and I'm sorry I've kept you sort of... you're the one who should actually be arguing with him, not me. But do you believe the 2027 elections will be free and fair if electronic results are not transmitted in real time?
Charles, the essence of lawmaking is to cure known and unknown defects. In this particular instance of electoral reforms, coming from the 2023 general elections, particularly the presidential elections, where glitch is now a byword, I thought that going forward, we will be looking at how to cure that lacuna. The late President Umaru Yar'Adua is famously regarded as a statesman because he did own up that the elections that brought him into office was flawed, and he went ahead to impanel the late Justice Uwe's commission. But in this instance, we still have a sore thumb sticking out from the 2023 elections. And instead of seeking to make it better, the subsequent one in 2027, by ensuring a real-time transmission of results. What did we have? We now have a retrogression to the days of incident forms.
Yeah, but that's not fair. That's not fair at all,
Incident
to be
form,
honest.
this is
It's not even the incident
No,
form.
I'm going to explain it.
Just to be, because I
It's to
interrupted
open
him,
the-
and I can also
Yes.
interrupt you and sort of bring clarity to what you're saying.
Yeah.
They've actually moved it forward, according to them. They've now included that clause that says electronic transmission.
Can we read it first?
Yes.
The
Before
only
moving
point is
forward.
that if it does not work, then there must be something to fall back on.
Charles,
There
Charles,
are-
let's do something.
You and I know that when you leave certain proviso, the tendency is to depend more. That's why I brought the incident form. When the incident form was the law, we had more issues with people filling incident forms. And so now that we have opened the door to say
You have not
if it
opened the
doesn't
door.
go, you will see a lot of issues with the transmission.
Right.
Already they are telling you that network coverage. And me and you know that it is a lie. In the lead up to the last elections, NCC, Nigerian Communications Commission, and INEC conducted a survey. And they came up with between 93 to 97%
Right, okay.
of coverage.
You've made
So
the
why
point.
4 years later we are
Right.
still talking
Let me
about
give him a chance
The
to
issue is
respond.
not about transmission, about network or no network. Look, let's look at read the law. You speak to the document. The presiding officer shall electronically transmit the result from each polling unit to the RF. That is what you are asking for.
So that's
It has
fairly
been
clear.
done. It has been
That
done.
one is
now,
clear.
define the real time. Now, define real time for me.
No, go
Please,
to the proviso.
Now,
I
no,
talked
no,
about
no,
proviso.
There's an
Now,
Now,
adjunct.
proviso
now,
I'm
oh, yeah?
talking
Yeah,
about.
there's an
Proviso.
adjunct.
Now, provided that if the electronic transmission of the result fails as a result of communication failure and it becomes impossible to transmit the result contained in the form EC80 signed and stamped by the presiding officer and countersigned by the candidate or polling agent where available at the polling unit, the form EC80 shall remain the primary source of collation. That means it's already
Right. Well, let me ask you this.
source of collation.
It raises two questions. Number one, how much of a necessary safeguard is that fallback clause? Or is it a loophole
No.
that
Let me
undermines
give you-
public
you see,
confidence?
what
That's
you
number
see-
one.
you see-
Number two, who determines when there is a communication failure?
I sent something to you. Is the coalition officer that will need to access the RF through his own machine or whatever equipment he's having. If he's not getting it, that means if it's not opening, probably you have signal problem within the RF. Because what happens is that the unit and the word are mostly removed in some areas. When you get signals, when you get to the, most of the time you have signals at the local government level, but you collate at the ward level. That's where you need RF to pop up. And some areas are within, the remotest areas are still within the rural areas. So those ones might not get until they move to the LGA level or the state level.
Right, okay.
So what we are now saying is, okay, if it does not, because some people are planning that once you don't get it, are we going to cancel the election? Because we heard what they were saying, they are planning, like they don't have any election to run. The only thing they want is to disrupt what is going to happen.
Well, let me bring
now,
you in.
now
Yeah.
moving further, if you go to go to 6 sub 6 under, the presiding officer who willingly contravene any provision of the clause committed an offence and shall be liable to it. So if you don't transmit, transmission is the main important thing. Snap and transmit. So if you don't transmit, you are liable.
Right. Well, let me ask you this.
If it gets there, it's a different thing.
Yeah, let me ask you this, Honorable Ogene, because we've been told, indeed, by some civil society people, by INEC people who know the system, that you can transmit your stuff, that it automatically goes into storage.
Yeah.
And then comes up a bit like your WhatsApp. When you send a message, when you go out, then it transmits. So it gets stored in there. So shouldn't that be enough security for you?
If that should be enough security, then why the proviso? Let me give you another example. In the laws, we know the issue of defection in Nigeria. But in making that law, for the National Assembly members to protect themselves, there became a proviso that in the event of a split or disagreement within your political party. And how do people cross over? You can engineer a crisis in a political party and use that window, defeating the essence of leaving your seat for which you were voted for on a particular party platform. So we know all of this gimmick. If they are sure and they know that once you upload, if you go to a network area, it goes. Then why are we going to this incident forms to open the doors?
Because, I mean, your party, the Labour Party, has shrunk since the 2023 elections. I mean, your presence in the National Assembly, your presence in the State Assembly, all kinds of things, you've shrunk considerably, whereas the APC has grown. Why should they be frightened of I mean, why would they need to rig an election? I don't understand.
No, that question, I ought to ask that question. With 30 plus governors,
we don't want to create a situation called crisis.
Just
you
let's
don't want
keep it
a
civil.
Situation.
Why would they be afraid for going for, in 2013, 13 years ago, on January 13, 2013, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, then as National Publicity Secretary of the defunct Action Congress of Nigeria, called for electronic voting, not transmission, electronic voting in 2015 general elections. Are you telling me, Charles and my colleague, that how many years after we are now quarreling with the issue of a mere transmission?
Nevertheless, let's be clear, and I'm going to come to you in 1 minute. Nevertheless, let's be clear that Lai Mohammed was representing the opposition at the time.
And who am I representing?
No, let me just make the point. And eventually, the opposition actually won the election in 2015. So the argument that you're making about whatever he called for, the elections eventually favored him and his opposition in 2015.
And I'm saying, why not live by a creed?
Right.
Live by a creed.
Educate him. You see, there's
Stop
a difference
educating
between
me.
Okay, let's
educate Nigerians. You owe them
you're part of Nigerians.
You owe them a duty.
Now, when you talk
educate
about
me.
electronic voting and online voting, there are differences. It's mixing electronic voting with online voting. Electronic voting can be offline. That's what Rufai did in one local government in the local government election in the state. Just like you have your beavers. Your beaver is an electronic device, but it's not an online when it's working as a beavers. It works with a stored input that you have. The data is stored already, so it can only work within the stored data. So when you are doing electronic voting, which we've also considered at the committee level, but we are just looking at the infrastructure, probably in 2031 or moving forward. Yes, we might, because it's going to save us printing unnecessary ballot paper, and that is when using printing online PVC will not be used to, because all you just need to identification. When you get to the box, the box will have all the information of those at that unit. So, and it's not going to waste any additional papers. It's only going to print and give you a copy. It's going to print what you voted for, the party, and it's going to give you a copy. You now put it in the box. Electronic voting is not online. So electronic voting still have printed copy that you just go and put. The only thing is that it does accreditation along with the voting. You do accreditation along with voting. That's only when you can now get a situation where accredited voters and the total vote must be equal. Because you cannot have the gap again. It's going to be equal. The accredited voters and the number of votes must be equal when you do electronic voting. But it's different from online voting. Online, you don't see your vote. You just vote, you go.
Right.
You get somewhere, somewhere.
I don't want to get bogged down in that, because that's not
really
the
main
issue. Yeah.
No, we are talking about only brought it up. You brought it up. So Lai Mohammed knew what he was saying.
If you
he was not saying
electronic
yes,
voting,
we are still talking about
the country should have advanced since then.
Yes, you should.
Electronic voting does not include.
Now you have power.
it does not include network. That's what I'm saying.
I'm
Yeah,
not
let's
even
not
dwelling.
get
The issue
bogged
is
down in
transmission.
that.
We
Yeah.
are
Yes,
not even
you are
talking
not
about
transmitting anything
we
in
are not even
electronic
talking about
voting.
electronic
Right.
voting.
It's only
All
online.
I'm
Give him a
saying
chance
is
to speak because you've
live
spoken
by
for
your
a while.
creed.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying we should go to electronic voting. But if you were so futuristic as to advocate electronic voting, and now a more lesser tax of transmission, and you can't do that, then what are you running
Right, okay,
from?
let me ask you this, because we are where we are now. The president has signed this bill into law. What would you recommend as the way to make Nigerians feel a sense of credibility in the system? I mean, how would they make it work for them in the current circumstances? Because there's not much you can do otherwise.
One, it does one of two things. First, elections is about confidence and integrity. Already the feeling out there is that even before 2027, the elections have been compromised. But we are here to tell Nigerians not to give up. The struggle for democracy is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And Nigerians need to use their votes to right the wrongs. And in doing that, after voting, we work within the laws, as it were, and still seek to tell them that what they are doing is wrong. So it is a question of the APC versus Nigerians.
Right. Well, I'm going to give you a
dreams.
chance to respond, and I'm going to ask you this in that context. Given the fallback to physical forms, which is essentially what this law has provided for, can you assure Nigerians who are concerned that there will still be, in the best way possible, the prevention of fraud and manipulation in 2027?
Now, that's why I said it needs some education. Now, what is the system all about? The issue of the RF. You snap your Form ECAT, which is the result at the unit. Everybody have signed already. Every agent has a copy already. By the time you get to the word collation, you have your copy with you. The collation officer brought Form EC 9A out. Now, maybe there are 10 units in that ward. So every agent and the presiding officer from each unit brings their result. He now records it down. It is only when you have issues from the result that it doesn't tally. That's when you now look for way of confirming. That's when you even need to open the RF at all. So if all the results tallies together, you don't even need RF. It's just for you to confirm if there are issues. So if everybody goes there, get reliable agents. That's what you need in your party. You don't even have agents. You don't even have agents. You don't even have agents. So instead of, I'm giving you expo.
That is a very honourable Balogun. Let me just come in here. Let me just come in here. That is actually an important point. So let me ask you this, Ogene.
So instead of coming here and be saying the Nigerians is against you, you are against Nigeria.
Let me just make this point.
A party that doesn't have numbers.
I'm
talking to me. I'm educating Nigerians.
No, but I'm sure he also understands.
This is your first time in election.
We can't all talk at the same time. Hold on, Honourable Balogun, just hold on a second.
I came to the assembly
and hold on a second.
In the 7th assembly.
Honourable
No, I'm talking in Labour
on,
Party. I'm
hold
not talking you as a person.
He actually raised, let me make a point, please. He raised an important point there.
Let's hear it.
If you haven't got agents, in fact, the argument has been adduced that one of the reasons why some of the opposition are very uncomfortable about this is because they haven't got agents. They haven't got enough agents across the place. And you can't, I mean, they can't provide agents for you. If you can't supply enough, if you can't supply enough agents, what you're essentially doing is asking IREV to represent the polling booths where you're not available.
No, they want the IREV. They want to look for the IREV in the polling booth.
Well, I'm asking you a question.
I'm sure that
I'm not taking any position.
I'm sure that you are aware that we are in a coalition. I'm sure you are aware. If you are not aware, Nigerians are aware. My leader is Mr. P2B. And he's already in the ADC.
Right. So even though you remain in Labour, you are.
Yeah, until the switch is completed on the floor, yeah, I remain in Labour.
Right.
But you should know that the coalition has the spread to cover all parts of Nigeria in terms of agents. So that is not even the issue.
Okay.
The
Well, I'm
issue
glad you
is
clarified that
yes,
point.
the
Then you don't have
issue
any problem
is
with the law,
how
then.
did we come about this electoral act that was signed today? So all these attempts to sidestep it and begin to go technical won't help. It is the Nigerian people that you should explain to.
Yes,
You
they
asked
understand.
a-
Nigerian people understand.
You asked a
Well,
valid
actually, they don't. I mean, if
You-
they
you
did,
asked-
they
you
would
asked
not
a
have
valid
had the
question.
protest.
You
some
asked a valid
I'm not talking about
question.
those CSOs that came to the gate. Oh. I'm
I
not
like
talking
that. They're not
about those ones.
Nigerians, eh?
Huh?
Those
How
CSOs
many?
are not Nigerians.
How many? My members from
Please,
my own
I'd
constituencies
prefer
are
when
not there.
I'd prefer
Many
when you ask me a
constituencies-
question, you give me the time to
Sorry,
answer
I
without
apologize.
interruption.
Please finish.
Thank you. The issue, you asked him last time, what happened to the real transmission? Now, let me state, if you have a conference committee, they are not empowered to change anything. All they do is adopt one version. If it is the Senate clause that they want to go, they go with it. Now we are told that because of the time, that was the single agenda, time. And we all agreed so that we could move the time from 360 days to 300 days. But Charles, do you know that they went ahead and made some other alterations? And these same alterations, he read out something. If you go to clause 84, I'm sure you can identify
Sure.
this document.
Yes.
If you
Clause
go
84,
to
and
clause,
we even remove clause 87.
if you go to clause 84, and
Yes.
they didn't have the powers. The
Says who?
leadership and the conference committee that had been charged to do an assignment didn't finish the assignment, they hijacked it. And then in clause 84, 3 modes, 84.2, the procedure for the nomination of candidates by political parties for the various elective positions shall be by direct, indirect primaries or consensus. Now, right there on the floor, and you know that they started considering this clause by clause, from 1 to 10 until we drew the attention that it wasn't going to work that way. You would wonder why they decided to go that route. Now, this piece of paper was shared right there on the floor. Some got, some didn't get. And what did it say? The procedure for the nomination of candidates by political parties for the various elective positions shall be by direct primaries or consensus. So who gave them the authority to
You see?
change this?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a quick reply, then we've got to go to what he said. And
Yeah.
be very specific
Yes.
about what you
Yes.
just said.
First, he
Right.
said the conference committee. We went back to the committee on electoral matters. The committee saw we had a situation that, okay.
That's the committee that you chair.
Yeah, that I share.
Right.
It's the committee that now reconvened, the joint committee. Then we now made some amendment. Because if the conference committee should work, they cannot change 300 to 360 to 300. So we reconvened as a committee and now took decision and now rescinded the earlier amendments now represented. So on the floor of the House, you know, the documents came late.
To do that
Sure.
without
So the
it
committee,
being in consultation.
No,
They're
you see,
done.
the committee is the committee now, not the what do you call
Not
it?
the conference committee. Right.
Is the statutory committee that took the decision, joint committee that took the decision. Now, talking about the document, as we were preparing, because it was in a hurry, I realized that probably there was some errors in the printing, and we saw it, and we said, okay, let them go and make correction, and that's why they were saying they didn't have the
There were
documents.
errors in the printing. I don't
No,
understand.
there were errors. That was just a page. There was a page where there was an error. They now took it back, and that's why they said they don't give them
And then
papers.
things that were
Some of
there
them had
originally suddenly
no,
disappeared.
just one word, just a word. So That was why, because once you are not been given, it's not yet a document.
Okay.
It was not yet
Well,
laid.
unfortunately,
it was not yet, 1 minute, 1 minute, it's clear.
Well, we're out of time,
I need to clear this. It was not yet laid.
Right.
And that's why they were asking for, where is the document, where is the document? And we said, well, they're still working on it. You know, in the National Assembly, some of them are close to the civil servants. Some of them were able to get the copy while they are still working on it. And by the time we now bought the corrected version, some of them had the one with the error, and they were not trying to carry it around that. Oh, that was. But by the time we are doing consideration, it's important that we had the section 84 in the correct version,
Okay. Well,
and that is why you made a motion to correct it. Right. Because if you have not seen the corrected version, okay, you will not take motion to stall it.
I am out of time, and I really have to.
No, why were you saying section 84?
Really
I started by asking
gentlemen, I want to thank you very much
document.
indeed. Honourable Adebayo Balogun, member of the APC, chairman of the House Committee on Electoral Matters, and Victor Afam Ogene, Honourable Victor Afam Ogene of the Labour Party. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sorry we're out of time, but you know, you guys have made very, very solid points. You both.